The battlefield was finally silent. Burned metal cooled, sending ghostly hisses into the air. Smoke drifted low over the shattered ground, a gray shroud over the aftermath. Alien soldiers lay scattered, some dead, many dying. And then the humans did something no one expected. They walked toward the wounded, even the enemy. Captain Eli Morgan removed his helmet slowly, the hiss of the seal breaking the quiet. Dust clung to his dark combat armor, its white medical markings scratched and faded from months of front-line evacuations. His face was tired, his eyes bloodshot from too many nights without sleep. A bandage wrapped his left forearm was already soaked red, a testament to the day's chaos. Behind him, human medics moved quietly. There were no victory chants, no raised weapons. Only the soft clink of medkits and the rustle of stretchers. This was Calaris 7, an alien colony world that had been pulled into a war it never chose. The enemy species, the Valorians, were tall, scaled, four-armed beings whose culture taught one absolute rule. An enemy left wounded on the field of battle deserves death, not mercy. But that belief shattered today. Valorian survivors propped against shattered walls and twisted metal watched in absolute disbelief as human medics knelt beside their fallen warriors. One Valorian officer, bleeding out from a gash in his side, shouted weakly, his voice a rasp. "He's your enemy. Let him die." A human medic didn't even look up from her work. "Hold still," she said calmly, her hands expertly sealing a deep wound on a Valorian chest plate. "You're losing pressure." The officer stared, his multiple eyes wide with confusion and shock. "You would save us," he hissed, the words laced with a venom that was slowly fading. "After what we did?" She finally met his eyes, her own gaze unwavering. "Yeah," she replied, a small, tired smile touching her lips. "That's kind of our thing." Eli was coordinating triage, directing medics to the most critical cases when he heard it. A sound that had no place on a battlefield. Crying. It was faint, broken, and utterly terrified. He froze, his head snapping up. "Did you hear that?" he asked a Marine standing nearby. The Marine paused, listening, then nodded. "Yeah, from the rubble zone over there. Command says the area's cleared, Captain." Eli didn't answer. He was already running. His boots crunched over debris as he moved toward the source of the sound, his training screaming at him to be cautious, but a deeper instinct pushing him forward. The collapsed structure had once been a civilian shelter. Now inside, twisted metal and shattered stone formed a dark, claustrophobic pocket. Eli crawled through a narrow gap, his movements careful. "Hey," he said softly, his voice echoing in the small space. He switched his suit light to a low, non-threatening beam. "It's okay. I'm here." The crying grew louder, closer. He found her curled against a far wall. A Valorian child, small. One of her arms was burned badly, the scales blackened and peeling. The rest of her was covered in ash, dulling the natural iridescent sheen of her species. Her eyes, wide with pure terror, were fixed on him. As he moved closer, she raised her free arm, her small claws extended defensively. Eli slowly, deliberately removed his heavy combat gloves, letting them fall to the dusty floor. He held up his bare hands. "I won't hurt you," he said gently, his voice low and soothing. "I promise." She couldn't understand his words, of course. The language barrier was absolute. But she understood his tone. She understood the slow movements, the lack of aggression. The crying subsided into quiet, hiccuping sobs. Just then, command crackled in his ear. Captain Morgan, extraction is inbound. 2 minutes. Leave the zone, I repeat. Leave the zone. Eli looked at the terrified child. He glanced up at the unstable ceiling, groaning under its own weight. Negative, command, he said, his voice firm. I've got a survivor. There was a pause. Captain, she's an enemy civilian. We can't take her. Orders are... Eli cut them off. I'm staying. A long silence followed, filled only by the creak of stressed metal. Then a quiet reply, barely a whisper over the comms. Understood. Eli wrapped the small child in his thermal cloak, the material providing warmth and a sense of security. As he carefully made his way back toward the open ground, a wounded Valorian soldier saw them. The soldier was slumped against a piece of wreckage, but his weapon twitched weakly in his grasp, its targeting laser flickering to life. Eli stopped. Every instinct screamed at him to raise his rifle to neutralize the threat. Instead, he did the opposite. He lowered it. She's hurt, Eli said simply, his voice carrying across the short distance. I'm taking her to get medical attention. The soldier stared. At Eli, at the bundle in his arms, at the lowered weapon, then, slowly, painstakingly, he lowered his own. When Eli arrived at the human medical zone, the medics froze for a half-second when they saw the child, but only for a half-second. Eli set her down gently on a vacant cot. She needs help, he said, his voice raw with urgency. Now. They didn't hesitate. They didn't question. They just acted. Burn treatment, IV fluids, stabilization. Within minutes, the child's ragged breathing steadied. Across the field, Valorian commanders and officers watched it all unfold through their helmet displays. Their culture, their entire military doctrine had no words for this. It was an action so alien, so illogical that it broke their understanding of warfare. Later, after the last of the wounded had been evacuated, a Valorian commander approached Eli. His armor was cracked and dented, his pride even more so. You healed our warriors, he said slowly, his voice heavy with a new, unfamiliar emotion. And you saved a child that was not yours. Eli just shrugged, the exhaustion of the past few days settling deep into his bones. Kids are kids, he said. The commander's voice trembled slightly. We were taught that mercy was weakness, a fatal flaw. Eli met his gaze, holding it. So were we, he said. We just learned better. When the war finally ended months later, historians didn't mark the turning point as a great battle or a strategic victory. They marked it as the day on Calaris 7, the day a human medical camp treated its enemies, the day a captain defied orders to save a single child, the day an entire species learned that fear wasn't humanity's greatest weapon, compassion was. The final entry in the official Valorian historical record of the war ended with one forbidden revolutionary sentence. Humans are dangerous because they will help even when they don't have to. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content just like this. See you next time.